Invisible threads. The elevator doors slid open to the 42nd floor of the Walsh Tower, and Olivia Reed took a deep breath before stepping out. The hallway stretched before her, all polished marble and glass, leading to what would be her new workplace, if she could impress the notoriously difficult Harrison Walsh. "Mr. Walsh doesn't keep assistants for long," the HR director had warned during her interview. "He's particular." Olivia straightened her simple navy blazer. At 32, she'd built a reputation for turning chaotic executives into organized professionals. Her references were impeccable. Still, this position paid nearly double her previous salary, and she needed the money to support her grandfather's increasing medical bills. The receptionist escorted her to a conference room where a man stood with his back to the door, gazing out at the city skyline. Harrison Walsh, 41 years old, turned slowly, his expression unreadable. Tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair graying slightly at the temples, his presence filled the room without effort. "Miss Reed," his voice was measured, devoid of warmth. "Your resume is impressive." "Thank you, Mr. Walsh." Olivia met his gaze directly, refusing to be intimidated. "Can you explain why you left Meridian Partners after 5 years?" "The company was downsizing. I was offered a severance package." He studied her face, searching for something. "Yet your former employer gave you a glowing recommendation." "I'm good at what I do, Mr. Walsh." A flicker of something, respect perhaps, crossed his face. "You start tomorrow, 7 a.m. sharp." The first weeks passed in a blur of meetings, correspondence, and learning Harrison's exacting preferences. Olivia discovered that beneath his cold exterior lay a brilliant business mind. The recent divorce from his socialite wife had left him more withdrawn than ever, according to office whispers. Speculation about the split ranged from his workaholic tendencies to infidelity on her part, though Olivia avoided such gossip. Harrison barely acknowledged Olivia's presence most days, treating her as an efficient extension of his office rather than a person. She maintained the professional distance he clearly preferred, arriving before him each morning and preparing everything exactly as he liked it. Then came the day Harrison received news that a development project in Singapore was faltering. She heard the controlled anger in his voice during the conference call, watched his shoulders tense as he ended it. Without comment, Olivia canceled his lunch meeting, ordered his favorite coffee from the cafe downstairs, and placed it on his desk alongside a folder containing contingency plans she'd prepared weeks ago when she'd first noticed potential issues with the project. Harrison opened the folder, flipped through it, then looked up at her with genuine surprise. "You anticipated this?" "It's my job to stay 3 steps ahead, Mr. Walsh." That evening, he actually said thank you as she left. Small moments followed. Harrison noticed how Olivia remembered clients' children's names, how she kept fresh flowers in the reception area, how she treated the cleaning staff with the same respect she showed board members. He observed her quiet efficiency during a crisis when the building lost power, and her gentle handling of a distraught investor. One rainy Tuesday, Olivia arrived drenched despite her umbrella. Harrison emerged from his office as she attempted to dry off discreetly. "You're soaked." His usual clipped tone held an unfamiliar note of concern. "It's nothing. I'll dry quickly." Later that morning, she found a package on her desk, a company umbrella, larger and sturdier than her collapsible one, with a small note. "More practical. Kiwu." Harrison found himself increasingly aware of Olivia's presence. The subtle scent of her perfume, the soft sound of her typing, the way she tucked her chestnut hair behind her ear when concentrating. She never attempted to engage him in unnecessary conversation or ingratiate herself, unlike his previous assistants. Her self-contained competence was refreshing. When his childhood friend Julian Bennett called to announce he'd be in town, Harrison surprised himself by suggesting dinner at his home rather than a restaurant. "Invite Ms. Reed as well," he found himself saying to his housekeeper when arranging the evening. "She's been working late all week." He told himself it was merely professional courtesy, nothing more. Yet as the dinner approached, Harrison caught himself wondering what Olivia would wear outside the office, what she might reveal about herself away from work. The thought unsettled him more than he cared to admit. The catalyst Olivia stared at the invitation with surprise. Dinner at Harrison Walsh's personal residence was unprecedented. In the 8 months she'd worked for him, He'd never once blurred the line between professional and personal. She debated declining but recognized it wasn't really a request. Harrison's estate sat on 5 acres overlooking the bay, a modernist marvel of glass and stone. Olivia chose a simple emerald dress that was elegant without being ostentatious, her hair loose around her shoulders instead of in her usual office bun. The housekeeper, Mrs. Pearson, greeted her warmly. "He's on the terrace with Mr. Bennet. Follow me." Stepping onto the expansive terrace, Olivia immediately noticed the difference in Harrison. His usual severe expression had softened, and he was actually smiling as he conversed with a man whose back was to her. "Ah, Ms. Reed," Harrison said, standing as he noticed her. "Julian, this is my executive assistant, Olivia Reed. Olivia, meet Julian Bennet, my oldest friend and occasional business rival." Julian turned, revealing a man with warm amber eyes and an easy smile. Where Harrison was all controlled intensity, Julian radiated effortless charm. "The mysterious Olivia. Harrison mentioned you've revolutionized his office. I was beginning to think you were mythical." "Hardly mythical, Mr. Bennet, just doing my job." "Please, it's Julian, and based on Harrison's reluctant compliments, your job includes performing minor miracles." Dinner was served on the terrace, the conversation flowing more easily than Olivia expected. Julian shared stories from their college days, painting a picture of a younger, less guarded Harrison that fascinated her. "Did you know this workaholic used to write poetry?" Julian revealed, ignoring Harrison's warning glance. "Really?" Olivia couldn't hide her surprise. "Terrible poetry," Harrison clarified. "Mercifully abandoned." Julian leaned toward Olivia conspiratorially. "He won a university prize for it. I still have copies." "Which will never see the light of day if you value our friendship," Harrison said dryly. Julian laughed. "See how he threatens me? Always so serious." "Someone has to balance your perpetual optimism," Harrison countered. "Life's too short for pessimism," Julian insisted. "Speaking of which, Olivia, what do you do when you're not salvaging Harrison's schedule?" Olivia hesitated, unused to personal questions in Harrison's presence. "I restore vintage books." "It's a hobby. Fascinating. What period?" "Early 20th century mainly. There's something about preserving someone's words from a century ago that feels important." Julian's genuine interest encouraged Olivia to elaborate on her passion for book restoration, a subject she rarely discussed. Harrison watched, oddly captivated by this animated version of his usually reserved assistant. When Julian described a disastrous sailing adventure they'd experienced years ago, complete with dramatic reenactments, Olivia couldn't contain her laughter. Not the polite chuckle she occasionally offered at work, but a genuine, melodious laugh that transformed her face entirely. Harrison froze, wineglass halfway to his lips. In that moment, Olivia wasn't his efficient professional assistant, but a vibrant, beautiful woman whose joy illuminated the space around her. Something shifted in his chest, a recognition, a possibility he'd been blind to. Julian, ever perceptive, caught Harrison's expression and raised an eyebrow slightly before smoothly continuing his story. As the evening progressed, Harrison found himself increasingly quiet, observing the easy rapport between Julian and Olivia, with a growing sense of discomfort he reluctantly identified as jealousy. When Julian mentioned his new gallery opening and suggested Olivia might enjoy it, Harrison felt an irrational urge to object. "I've always wanted to see more contemporary art," Olivia was saying. "Then you must come," Julian insisted. "This Friday? I'll send you the details." Harrison cleared his throat. "Friday is the Davidson proposal deadline." "Which is well in hand," Olivia replied, a hint of confusion in her eyes at his implied objection. Later, as Julian prepared to leave, he embraced Harrison warmly. "She's remarkable," he whispered. "No wonder you've been keeping her to yourself." Harrison stiffened. "It's not like that." Julian's knowing smile only irritated him further. After Julian's departure, an awkward silence fell between Harrison and Olivia as they stood in the foyer. "Thank you for the invitation, Mr. Walsh. It was a lovely evening." "Harrison," he said abruptly. "Outside the office, I think Harrison is appropriate." Surprise flickered across her face. "Thank you for clarifying. Harrison." His name on her lips sent an unexpected warmth through him. "Did you mean it? About attending Julian's gallery opening?" "I did. I don't get many opportunities to experience that world." Something in her tone suggested limitations beyond just time. Financial constraints, perhaps. Harrison suddenly realized how little he knew about her life outside work. "Julian has excellent taste," he said finally, "in art and people." Olivia tilted her head slightly. "He's not what I expected given your—" "My what?" "Your different approaches to life," Harrison almost smiled. "Julian embraces chaos. I prefer order. Yet you've remained friends. He reminds me not to take everything so seriously." Harrison hesitated, and I occasionally prevent his spontaneity from becoming self-destruction. As Olivia gathered her things to leave, Harrison found himself reluctant to end the evening. "Will you need a car on Friday?" "For the gallery? I plan to take a rideshare. I'll have my driver collect you." The offer surprised them both. "Since it's partly work-related," he added hastily. "That's very kind, but unnecessary. I insist." His tone brooked no argument. After she left, Harrison poured himself a scotch and stood where Olivia had been, still seeing her transformed by laughter, still feeling the unfamiliar tightness in his chest when Julian had made her smile. He'd spent months seeing her as nothing more than an efficient component of his professional life, deliberately maintaining that distance. Now, he couldn't unsee what had been revealed tonight: her passion for preservation, her quiet wit, the warmth she contained beneath her professional exterior. The realization disturbed his carefully ordered world. The following days at the office were strained with new awareness. Harrison found himself noticing everything: how Olivia's fingers lingered on documents she handed him, how she absently hummed when she thought no one could hear, how she brought sunshine into rooms simply by entering them. When Friday arrived, Harrison told himself he was merely working late, that his presence at the office until Olivia left for the gallery was coincidental. He told himself the same lie when 2 hours later, he found himself at Julian's gallery, ostensibly to support his friend's new venture. The truth hit him with full force when he entered and immediately searched for her in the crowd. Harrison Walsh, who had sworn never to make himself vulnerable again after his divorce, was falling for his assistant. And watching her across the room, laughing with Julian again, he realized he might already be too late. Beyond barriers, Harrison stood frozen at the gallery entrance, watching Olivia gesture animatedly as she discussed a large, abstract canvas with Julian. She wore a simple black dress that somehow appeared more elegant than the designer gowns surrounding her. Her chestnut hair caught the gallery lights, creating a halo effect that made it difficult for him to look away. "Harrison Walsh at an opening?" "The world must be ending," called a familiar voice. Vanessa Moore, art critic and occasional thorn in Julian's side, approached with a knowing smile. "Let me guess, Julian dragged you here?" "Something like that," Harrison murmured, his eyes still on Olivia. Vanessa followed his gaze. "Ah, I see the actual draw now." "Your assistant, isn't she?" "Julian introduced us earlier." Harrison bristled. "Ms. Reed is attending in a semi-professional capacity." "Of course she is," Vanessa said with amused disbelief. "You might want to work on your poker face, Harrison. It's telling quite a story tonight." Before he could respond, Julian spotted him and waved him over enthusiastically. Harrison had no choice but to approach, uncomfortably aware of Olivia's surprised expression. "I didn't expect to see you here," she said, a question in her tone. Last-minute decision, supporting Julian's latest venture. The excuse sounded hollow even to his own ears. Julian's eyes danced with mischief. Harrison secretly loves art. He just hates admitting he has interests beyond spreadsheets. "That's not entirely fair," Olivia said unexpectedly. "Mr. Walsh, Harrison has very sophisticated taste. His office selections are quite impressive." Harrison felt oddly touched by her defense. "You never mentioned you noticed the art." "I notice a lot of things," she replied quietly, their eyes meeting for a moment before she looked away. Julian glanced between them with interest. "Olivia has an exceptional eye. She identified my favorite piece immediately." "It speaks to anyone who's ever felt caught between worlds," Olivia explained, gesturing to the painting behind them, a striking work showing a figure poised between shadow and light. Her insight surprised Harrison. It was precisely why the piece had caught his attention as well. The evening progressed with Julian introducing them to various artists while Harrison observed the easy way Olivia engaged with everyone, revealing a social confidence he hadn't witnessed at work. Occasionally their eyes would meet across the room, creating moments of connection that left him increasingly unsettled. Later, as Olivia discussed restoration techniques with an interested curator, Julian cornered Harrison by the bar. "Stop torturing yourself and just tell her," Julian said without preamble. "I don't know what you're talking about," Julian sighed. "We've been friends for 20 years. I know exactly what that expression means. You've fallen for her. She works for me. It would be inappropriate. So she quits, or transfers departments. There are solutions if you actually want them." Harrison swirled his whiskey. "It's not that simple." "Because of Diane?" Julian referenced Harrison's ex-wife gently. "Not everyone is looking to exploit you, Harrison. How can I trust my own judgment? 8 months of working closely with her and I notice nothing. Then you make her laugh once and suddenly I'm—" He stopped abruptly. "Jealous?" Julian supplied helpfully. "For what it's worth, there's nothing happening between Olivia and me. Yet. Not ever. She's lovely, but she's not for me." Julian's expression grew serious. "She lights up when you enter a room, you know. Small glances when you're not looking. I noticed it at dinner." Harrison wanted to believe him but shook his head. "You're seeing what isn't there. And you're blind to what's right in front of you." The conversation ended as Olivia approached, looking slightly overwhelmed by the growing crowd. "I should probably head home soon," she said. "Early morning tomorrow with the Richardson project." "I'll drive you," Harrison offered immediately. Julian smirked. "How fortunate you both have the same destination." Olivia looked confused. "We do?" "General direction," Harrison clarified, shooting Julian a warning glance. The drive began in silence, the city lights sliding over Olivia's profile as she gazed out the window. Harrison found himself searching for words that wouldn't come. "You seem to enjoy the gallery," he finally managed. "I did. Julian is very knowledgeable." She hesitated. "May I ask you something personal?" Harrison tensed but nodded. "Why did you really come tonight?" The direct question caught him off guard. "I told you." "No," she interrupted gently. "Not the reason you gave. The real one." The car slowed at a red light, bathing them in crimson glow. Harrison turned to her, suddenly tired of pretense. "I came because I knew you would be there," he admitted. "Because since that dinner I haven't been able to stop thinking about you." Olivia's breath caught. "Mr. Walsh, please, Harrison." "Harrison," she amended softly. "I think there's been a misunderstanding." His heart sank. "I've made you uncomfortable. I apologize." "No," she said quickly. "That's not what I meant. I'm just trying to understand if this is real, or if it's just because Julian showed interest." The light changed, and the car moved forward again. Harrison considered her question with the thoroughness he applied to business decisions. "Julian made me see what I'd been blind to," he finally said. "But this isn't about him. It's about how you transform every space you enter, how you anticipate needs before they're expressed, how you brought order to my professional life and somehow made me wish for the same in my personal one." He paused. Vulnerability, unfamiliar territory. "I've spent months keeping a professional distance, telling myself that was appropriate. The truth is I was protecting myself. After Diane—" "I'm not Diane," Olivia said simply. "No, you're nothing like her." Harrison's voice softened. "You never try to be anything but exactly who you are." The car pulled up to her apartment building, a modest structure in a respectable but unremarkable neighborhood. "I don't know what to say," she admitted. "You don't have to say anything, but I needed you to know the truth." Harrison hesitated. "This changes things at work. I understand if you prefer to transfer. Is that what you want?" Olivia's eyes searched his. "What I want is to know you beyond the confines of an office. What I want is to hear that laugh again and know I caused it." A small smile formed on her lips. "I've been efficient and professional because that's what you seem to value. Not because it's all I am. I'm beginning to see that." Olivia took a deep breath. "I should tell you that I've had feelings for you for some time. I just never allowed myself to acknowledge them. It seemed impossible." The admission hung between them, changing everything and nothing. "Have dinner with me," Harrison said. "Not as my assistant. Not with Julian or anyone else. Just us. People will talk," she warned. "Let them. It complicates everything. Some complications are worth it." Olivia studied him for a long moment before nodding. "Sunday then. I'm not available before." "Sunday," he agreed, resisting the urge to reach for her hand. As she stepped from the car, she turned back. "Harrison, thank you for seeing me. Not just the assistant, but me. "I'm sorry it took me so long," he replied honestly. The following days brought adjustments. Harrison initiated paperwork to have Olivia transferred to the Special Projects Division, reporting to the Chief Innovation Officer rather than directly to him. The move came with a promotion and salary increase that reflected her true value to the company. Their first real date was at a small, intimate restaurant by the water. Without the barriers of professional roles, conversation flowed naturally. Harrison discovered Olivia's dry wit, her passion for historical mysteries, her dream of opening a small book restoration studio someday. She learned about his childhood in Boston, his secret love of classical music, and the poetry he still occasionally wrote but never showed anyone. "Not even Julian?" she teased. "Especially not Julian," he laughed. "Though I might be persuaded to share it with you someday." Months later, at Julian's country house for a weekend gathering, Harrison found Olivia in the library, carefully examining a damaged first edition. "Julian mentioned you might enjoy this," he said, handing her an antique bookbinding tool he'd tracked down from a collector in Vienna. Her eyes widened with delight. "How did you even find this?" "I have my resources," he said with a small smile, "and motivation." Olivia set the tool aside and moved closer. "And what motivates Harrison Walsh these days?" "Primarily, making you laugh," he admitted, pulling her into his arms. "I never want to be the man who couldn't see what was right in front of him again." "I think you see me quite clearly now," she whispered against his lips. From the doorway, unnoticed, Julian watched them with satisfaction before quietly withdrawing. Some catalysts, he reflected, merely accelerated what was already inevitable. And sometimes the most important thing a friend could do was simply make someone laugh, revealing truths that had been there all along. New Horizons. 6 months into their relationship, Harrison surprised Olivia with a key to his home. The gesture, simple yet profound, represented his growing trust. That evening, they sat on his terrace overlooking the bay, discussing her dream of opening a book restoration studio. "What's holding you back?" Harrison asked, his fingers intertwined with hers. "Reality," she smiled ruefully. "The startup costs alone are prohibitive." Harrison was silent for a moment. "I could help." "No," Olivia said firmly. "I need to do this on my own." He respected her independence, though it sometimes frustrated him. What if it wasn't charity but an investment? Olivia's eyes narrowed. "Explain." "A legitimate business proposal. Proper terms, interest rates, repayment schedule. I'd be a silent partner." "You'd really do that?" "I believe in you," he said simply. "And I know a good investment when I see one." 2 weeks later, Olivia presented a comprehensive business plan that impressed even Harrison's exacting standards. Restoration and Renewal opened 4 months later in a small but elegant space downtown. Harrison kept his promise to remain silent about his financial involvement, letting Olivia build her reputation on her own considerable merit. When her grandfather's health deteriorated, Harrison witnessed a new dimension of Olivia's strength as she balanced her fledgling business with hospital visits. He found himself at the hospital more often than not, bringing food, handling insurance calls, and simply being present. "You don't have to do this," she told him one exhausted evening. Harrison thought about how she'd restored not just books, but something in himself he'd thought permanently damaged. "Yes," he said quietly. "I do." Full circle. On their 1-year anniversary, Harrison took Olivia back to Julian's gallery where they'd had their first honest conversation. Julian had arranged a private viewing of a new collection. "One more surprise," Harrison said, leading her to a small room in the back. Inside, displayed under perfect lighting, was a first-edition collection of poetry books she'd been restoring for months. Now completed by master craftsmen, Harrison had secretly commissioned to finish the work while she focused on her grandfather. "How did you—" Olivia's voice trailed off in wonder. "Julian helped," Harrison admitted. "He's surprisingly good at subterfuge." As she examined the perfect restoration, Harrison reached into his pocket and withdrew a small box. When Olivia turned around, he was on one knee. "I spent most of my life building walls instead of bridges," he said, his voice uncharacteristically uncertain, "until you showed me a different way to exist." Olivia's eyes filled with tears as he opened the box, revealing a vintage emerald ring. "It reminded me of the dress you wore that night Julian made you laugh," Harrison explained. "The night I finally started seeing clearly." "Yes," she whispered before he could even ask the question. Later at Julian's celebration dinner, he raised his glass with a knowing smile. To the power of a single laugh, he toasted. And to seeing what's been there all along. Harrison squeezed Olivia's hand under the table, grateful for second chances and best friends who sometimes saw more clearly than we could ourselves.